You're not responsible. It was wrong. Reach out to me. We'll connect you.
I will never see, speak, or hear from Aaron Smith-Levin for the rest of my life.
I've been raised since the age of 4 to follow orders, do as I was told, or risk losing everything.
If we speak out, that's the only way they're going to get the strength to have the courage to do the same.
Why the hell does someone have to escape to get out of a religion?
I'm still shocked by the evil. This is pure evil at work.
And welcome to the 98th episode of Come Get Some. On this Come Get Some Extra Scientology edition, part 2 with Len Zinberg. I am Miami 6 Man, Chris Creamy. You can message me at Miami 6 Man on Twitter, at CGS here, at CGS Extra. You can also find a CGS, a Come Get Some Facebook webpage. I keep forgetting to mention. I have a website. 98 episodes, and in 2 episodes will be number 100. But first, before I get into all that, I want to start with something that I think is really important. I want to start with Leah Remini. That's right, Leah Remini. Since we last talked, since you last heard me on this podcast, Leah Remini and Mike Rinder and the entire A&E staff, and I feel like the entire ex-Scientology community, won an award, the Television Critics Award for Outstanding Achievement in Reality Television. It's an award that I think means more than just a trophy. It's telling Leah, telling Mike, the entire staff at A&E, anyone brave enough to speak out, whether you spoke out on Scientology in the aftermath, a blog, a podcast, a YouTube video. This is a message to all of you, everybody, that you're being heard. And it doesn't matter how far away from the stage Elizabeth Moss gets, you can't deny it's been heard. And it's been acknowledged. So that's coming back for season 2. I am so excited. Scientology in the Aftermath, Tuesday night on A&E TV, depending on your time zone. I will be watching it. I will probably be taking an odd hour to break at my work to be able to see it. It's time, and there were some people who wanted to hear more, and I say wanted, I meant felt we needed to hear more of the more serious stories to really see the extent of what happens, and we're going to see that in season 2. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's important. I'm switching things around next week. Next week, I start part 1 of a really sweet lady, good friend, becoming a good friend of mine, someone I really like a lot. Glenda Smith used to be with the CCHR with Scientology. She's got a lot of great insight. That will not be happening on Friday next week. That'll be happening on Thursday next week, where I normally do my regular Come Get Some show. So that Friday, I can go live, and we're going to celebrate 100 episodes of Come Get Some / Come Get Some Extra. And the reason I say that is I've never been able to quite, and I think in hindsight I should have done it, but I never split the 2 up really so much. So it all combines for 100 episodes. But it's not all that bad on the Scientology side, because it's actually at the same time as I'm celebrating 100 episodes of Come Get Some, I'm also celebrating a year since I first poked my head down the rabbit hole of Scientology talking to Kathy Schenkelberg. She was my first interview on the subject in August of last year, and it was kind of my eye-opening of going, okay, here's the dots, there's where they connect, and we know where it all went from there. I know a lot of people have come to, a lot of people in my family and my friends and coworkers and whatever have come to the point to where they don't understand why I do this show. And I know it all started with, actually, again, I talked to start the show about Leah Remini. It all started with the aftermath for me. It's the whole inspiration and the whole idea of why I do what I do here. It's the thing with Amy Scobie and John Alex Wood smearing her all over the internet really was the combination, the perfect storm to make me do this show. And since doing this show for a year, roughly a year, there's a few months between Kathy and Chris Shelton, who was my first on the Extra label. It's gotten to the point where I've gotten to know a lot of you good people, and even some people I've talked to off the air that never made it on the air with me. I was one of those people that sat at home, the whole indifference thing. I knew something was wrong with Scientology. I knew it was a cult. I read the articles, I read the blogs, I've seen the documentaries, and I sat at home and watched and thought, is it really, is this exploitation? Is this being exaggerated for television? Is this really as bad as it sounds like it is? And after getting to know some of these people personally and talking to the X community, I've found that it's not as bad as it looked on TV. More often than not, it's so much worse. And I know things I can't unknow. So we're going to keep going with this, and it's not going to stop until the abuses stop. You think about what happens to these people. What happened to these people back when they were in Scientology? You think about what they go through today. Whether you're talking about PTSD, or rather you're talking about whatever fair game might be going on. It never ends. And you think about the people who are going through it today. That I think I knew about the abuses for 10 years. And never thought about it that much because it didn't affect me personally. And now I know, and I think someone's going through it today, and I think of children going through auditing, baby auditing, and the purification rundown, and just the mental and the abuse that could be going on right now that nobody's trying to stop within the walls of Scientology. So let's keep this rolling. And here is, before I go to part 2, as I'll say, Friday, as I said, I'm celebrating the 100th episode. I'm going 100% live. I realized 12:30 in the afternoon Eastern time is not the ideal time to expect live interaction. So please send any questions, any thoughts, anything you want to say, any feedback for the past year, the past 100 episodes, year and a half that you want to ask me about. Ask me about any guest. Ask me anything you want through hashtag CGS here, or you can email cgshere@gmail.com. And of course, the phone lines will be 100% open and live again next Friday. So come, please join me for 100 episodes. Until then, let's go ahead and do part 2 of Len Zinberg. How did you end up leaving?
Very gradually, very slowly. I sort of became more and more disillusioned. I remember there was one incident that took place in my apartment where I had been inactive for some time, and Gary Epstein, who at one time was the commanding officer of the Advanced Org in Los Angeles, Gary Epstein and Louis Schwartz came to my apartment, and Gary wanted to give me a free course at the Free Winds. And he spent 2 or 3 hours trying to persuade me to take it. I mean, basically, I would have just paid my airfare, and everything else would have been taken care of. And I was very polite. Eventually, I just said, no, I'm really in a good place. I don't need it. Don't want it. Now's not a good time. And of course, they were very, very insistent. And finally, I remember at around 2 o'clock in the morning, telling them that it was time to get the fuck out of my apartment, and that they just weren't hearing what I was saying to them. I mean, that's a specific incident that I can point to where where I was able to articulate that I did not want to continue in Scientology. But even then, I was so fearful of arousing the wrath of the organization that I regretted it. I mean, it you know, when I emailed Paulette and apologized to her, and then when I was put in touch with Tony Ortega, who was writing the book about her, I was so fearful initially. There's just a very, very the aspect of Scientology's retaliation was something that I understood close up and firsthand because I had participated myself in those activities. And it wasn't just with Paulette, it wasn't just with the breaking into Robert Kaufman's apartment. It was over the years just a host of infiltrations and subterfuge and lying and deception. I mean, you know, some of the things that I was involved with had to do with I was taught how to create a false identity, which involved scouring obituaries and finding a child who had died at a very, very early age, who would be approximately my age. Then I would contact the Bureau of Records and request a copy of their birth certificate, because birth certificates and death certificates back in those days were not, you know, computerized. They existed on microfilm, and it was very easy, relatively easy, if one would you know, follow this Scientology's instructions. It was very easy to assume a false identity. And once one had the foundational document of a birth certificate, they could construct a much more complete cover. You know, I mean, the intelligence aspect of Scientology, number one, it belies every single one of L. Ron Hubbard's claims about what operating Thetans could do independently of their body.
Right.
Why would I have to break into Robert Kaufman's apartment with George Pilot to photograph everything in that apartment? If there were a single operating Thetan who could exteriorize with perceptics, why was I committing a felony?
Right.
I mean,
that's very true.
When you're in Scientology, you don't, you know, that thought just does not occur. It you know, the indoctrination is very, very complete.
So, what was your last day? What was your last day in Scientology?
Oh, what I know is this: in 1991, I flew to Israel during the Gulf War to sort of, there's a group called Volunteers for Israel, and I guess by that time I had sort of begun to return to my Jewish identity, and I've never been a particularly observant Jew, but I've been proud of my heritage.
Of course.
And so in 1991, when I flew to Israel and did that, I know that I was out. I mean, A few years earlier, I had testified on Scientology's behalf at the Wallersheim trial. And before that, I had infiltrated various groups of independent Scientologists. There was a group up in Elmira or Ithaca that I infiltrated, and that was on behalf of OSA, because the money that I was provided to take a course there was issued by a lawyer. I guess I was on the lawyer's books as an investigator, and this gave Scientology, plausible deniability, and it created a legal buffer between the organization and myself. So I guess I don't know whether I've answered your question.
Yeah. I think it just sort of happened over time. You just realized you weren't a Scientologist anymore.
It is. It is a very gradual process. There's a peeling of the onion aspect to the deconstruction of Scientology. Right now you have people who sort of have one foot out and one foot in. They say, well, the tech is valid. Hubbard was flawed, but the tech is valid.
How can that be?
Opinions. Well, each individual has to come to their understanding of it on their own.
Yeah.
And but yes, how can that be?
It's a valid question, I think. So having been through the whole cycle of that, can you imagine? Because we hear about people, and I'm not going to talk about a specific person, but people go back. People leave, try to redeem themselves and do good things, and then they go back. Besides for a family member, why do you think people go back?
Well, one of the strategies that Scientology has employed, and that they were doing it back in the 70s, was when they had a critic who had done real damage to them, they would get them to recant their testimony. It happened, I believe, with one of the we can look at the coroner in the Lisa McPherson case, who issued a very clear report that was quite damning of Scientology, and who, under pressure, recanted that testimony and issued a subsequent report that was much more vague and inconclusive. L. Ron Hubbard Jr., who worked very closely with Hubbard, would alternately criticize and then recant his criticism. So that's sort of like the handling of last resort that the Guardian's Office and OSA engage in. And it's very hard. You had, Bob Minton, who really did a tremendous job exposing Scientology's abuses, and Stacy Brooks, who basically went silent. Hubbard talks about shuttering people into Scientologists by either finding or manufacturing something against them that will silence them. And so that, and believe me, Chris, these are tectonic forces that Scientology can apply with a bottomless amount of cash and cadres of fanatical adherents. they've managed to silence a lot of people. Unfortunately, though, the internet makes it pretty much impossible, and they're on a very, very downward slope at this point, for which we can all be thankful.
Yeah, so it seems like very often in whether it be a sec check or an audit or an ethics thing, that the question of what your worst thing you've done is almost always brought up. And it seems like they have a lot they could use anyway without having to do a lot of research.
Yeah, absolutely. In my case, there was a point that came where I had to stop working with the Guardian's office in OSA because I went through a period where I was. I don't know how to describe it other than to say I was really as close as I could possibly be to a nervous breakdown, and I've never been a heavy drinker, but I was drinking a bottle of vodka every day.
Oh.
And I told my OSA handler, Charlie Backdoor, that I couldn't continue, and explained to me, well, it's okay, but we just want to make sure you don't have any unhandled overages. So come into the org and do a life history. So I wasn't sec checked. I voluntarily wrote every single incident involving a sexual partner that I could recall, and then I even, I think, manufactured a couple because I would submit it and he'd say, well, the case supervisor feels that there's more there, or they'd put me on the meter and my meter wouldn't float, and whatever it was. So I was in the OSA offices for about 3 days, just, writing up every single thing that I had ever done sexually, which, I should have understood that I was basically giving them rope to hang me, but at the time I didn't, because I believed, well, yeah, the reason a person stops doing something or becomes critical is because they have overages. I mean, that's Scientology 101. That's a very basic part of the indoctrination.
Right.
And so, that was how I sort of extricated myself from being a spy. My name had been excised from Scientology publications. Because they didn't want me to be known as a Scientologist, but fortunately, there's this person who does a website where she's collated the names of all people who are reported by Scientology to completed services. Her name is Christy Wachter, and her website is what's it called? TruthAboutScientology.com. And so I went on that website and I looked for Len Zinberg, and nothing came up. And then I looked for Leonard Zinberg, and nothing came up. And I thought to myself, wow, they erased me from their history. And then I typed in Lenny Zinberg, and boom, the fact that I went clear in 1976, and my clear number was 5549, came up. So they almost completely erased me.
Wow.
from Scientology history.
That's crazy. All right. So
yeah. We
got to a point to where you've been out for a while, and this is where I gain a lot of respect for you. And so I'm watching Merchants of Fear, the Layer Remedy special on Scientology and the Aftermath, and I see you talk about Paulette Cooper, and I saw a lot of humanity there. And that's when I decided at that point, I'm going to reach out to this guy and have him on my podcast. Do you want to talk about how that all went down with Paulette?
Well, basically what happened was this. You began by asking me about what happened when I was 13 years old.
Yep.
And what happened between 1991, when I got out of Scientology, until 2013, when I made contact with Paulette, was I spent a lot of time on the internet. I didn't speak out, but I was basically lurking. Sometime around 1993, I got a computer that a friend of mine was getting rid of. It was a pre-86 computer, and he was getting what was the state of the art at that time, which was a Pentium computer. And I got an AOL telephone account, and I started surfing the internet. And I came upon this news group called Alt Religion Scientology, which Scientology was spamming very heavily at the time, but in between the spam, there was some really genuine information. And as the internet grew, and I continued to lurk, remember now, this is from 1993 to 2013. That's a 20-year period when I was completely under the radar. I hadn't posted anything. I was essentially off the grid. So what happened in 2013 was preceded by a trip to Israel for my own children. In 2012, my son and daughter were bar and bat mitzvahed there. And shortly after that, I saw a video that Mark Bunker had done, an interview with Paulette Cooper, which talked about the fact that Paulette, at that time, still hadn't discovered who the Jerry Levin character was who had insinuated himself into her life and was basically living with her and spying on her for Scientology. And I thought back to the people that I knew during that time period. I knew Jimmy Meisler. I knew Jeff Marino. I knew his brother Jimmy Marino. I knew a lot of the people who were involved with the Guardian's office. And I thought maybe I can, by sharing with her whatever knowledge I had, I could help her to reach closure. And so I just typed this email and hit the send key and the enter key, and it's one of those things which when you do it, you're setting in motion a whole series of things over which you have no control, but you have to trust in a kind of cosmic justice taking place.
Sure.
And so I've never regretted reaching out to her. It was extremely difficult. It was honestly, it was because I was riddled with guilt, and I realized that how do I ask for forgiveness when I've been hiding for the last 40 years after having participated in this stuff. So and I just, I was I just felt I should be honest with her, and she was so remarkably understanding, and a part of it was, I'll tell you, a part of it was this: I had spent so many years impersonating a critic of Scientology that, I thought, she's not going to believe me. She's not going to, she's going to think that Scientology is running an operation on her.
Right.
It was. Obviously, it was a very cathartic experience for me, and the fact that Paulette put me in touch with Tony Ortega, who was so fearless and honest. Very, very, very hard to express my admiration for Tony, because he's just such a dedicated journalist, such just now I'm at a loss for words.
Well, you hit a point too where this is a very personal, and sometimes it's hard to express those things. I don't remember if this came up. I feel like it must have come up on Aftermath. Did you forgive yourself?
I did forgive myself, but what I said is that more importantly than forgiving oneself is that one needs to believe that they're worthy of forgiveness.
Right, I remember that.
By speaking out, I mean, I don't do a lot of interviews, honestly. I was interviewed by Steve Kanani in Toronto at the conference there, and when Leah Remini asked me to participate, I immediately agreed. And when you asked me, I of course agreed. But I'm not looking for publicity, but I won't shy away from speaking the truth.
I appreciate that.
I've reached the point now where at the age of 70, it's more important to speak the truth than to be concerned with self-image or any of that other stuff. And I've tried as best I can to explain to my children, the dangers of not applying critical thinking.
Right.
And
question everything.
Hopefully they're inoculated. But
Lynn, I gotta say, this is why I have so much respect for you and why I think highly of you. Is we all at some point in our lives have done something we regret or something that we're embarrassed about, and it's so easy to just. I mean, it can be so easy to just ignore it and pretend it didn't happen, and no one ever has to know. But you knew, and that's a testament to your moral compass that you had to say something. It took a while, but it did happen, and I can't say enough good things about that.
Well, thank you, Chris.
Okay, so something I do at the end of these interviews for all my guests is I do something called 10 questions. It's kind of a goofy little thing. Some are silly questions. Some might be deeper questions. If you want to participate, you don't have to answer if you don't like a question.
Go ahead.
All right, 10 questions with Lynn Zinberg. Number one, You actually talk about, in one of the articles I read about you, about fear and how it can be your ruination into evil. But true or false, it can also make you stronger.
At the point, true or false, fear can make one stronger?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, it can.
You tackle your fears, you take it, and you control it.
Yes.
Number 2, to sherbet or not to sherbet? Do you like sherbet?
Yes.
All right. Number 3, who's on first?
Who?
Exactly correct. I love it. All right. Number 4. I always said I'm going to write a self-help book about this because the Hubbard thing started with self-help ideals. Number 4. True or false? Only you can help yourself.
False.
Sometimes you need a little help along the way. You're saying.
Absolutely. We all need some help along the way.
It's always good to know when to ask. Absolutely. Number 5. What's your favorite drink, or do you not drink? You said earlier you didn't drink usually.
I guess Black Russian.
Black Russian. Okay. Number 6. In your opinion, briefly, can you tell me how a true believer can possibly be reached? I think that's like a big question, actually.
Gradually and over time.
You can't beat them over the head.
I'm sorry?
I don't think you can beat them over the head with it.
No, you can't beat them over the head with it. Although I did enjoy John McGee's recent activities in Dublin at the Jive Aces concert. But yeah, I think that people have to each experience something that causes them to rethink, especially something like Scientology, which it gets its hooks into a person on so many multiple levels that I think just speaking out and exposing people to the truth about Scientology eventually will cause many of them to rethink their involvement, and it obviously has, because Scientology is really a shadow of its former self. When I was involved in it, it was there was easily 100 people in the New York org. I remember, the Incredible String Band gave a concert in New York sometime around 1970, and there was a line out into the street and around the block of people trying to get into Scientology. The price of admission was buying a Dianetics book, and 99.999% of the people who came into that concert never set foot in the Scientology organization afterwards. But there was a time when Scientology was very popular, and in the intervening 40 years, it has become less and less and less popular. Because of its criminal behavior, because it really doesn't deliver any of what it promises, and because the public is aware. The people who are still in, they've been subject to that bamboozle for a long time. It's going to be hard for them, but it can happen.
It can. Number 7, what do you do in your spare time? What are your hobbies?
I'm a coin collector, and I love reading and walking my dog by the river.
It's so funny. I really thought you were going to say coin collecting. That's really funny. Okay. Number 8, can you describe Scientology in one word?
lethally dangerous.
We'll hyphenate it. Okay, that's good. Number 9, and I agree. Number 9. What's the last thing you said to an active Scientologist? Do you remember the last thing you said?
Yeah, I said I'm going to be on the Remedy program, and I gave them the time. I said, you might want to watch it.
Beautiful. Number 10. What's next for Len Zinberg? You got anything coming up?
No, I'm not. I really have nothing coming up, Chris. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You seem like a private guy to me. You just sort of keep to yourself. That's fine. That's good. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show, man. And it's kind of eye-opening to see the different perspectives and to see you come full circle on that trip to the museum and what your 13-year-old eyes see and what you see today. It's amazing, and I think a lot of people appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Chris. I appreciate the kind words.
No problem. You take care.
You as well. Bye-bye.
All right, so that was Len Zinberg. We proceeded to speak for over 30 minutes after that interview. Really good guy. So there you have it. Remember, come get some extra returns, not on Friday, but on Thursday with Glenda Smith, wonderful lady. You're going to love every bit of our conversation. A very well-spoken, very intelligent lady with a lot of important data to share. And, of course, Friday, come get some 100th episode, live, completely unpredictable. I'm not setting anything up. I haven't made calls anywhere. Maybe we get some live calls from past guests. Who knows? It's totally unpredictable. Send your questions to #CGSHere or to cgshere@gmail.com, or you can just tweet me, and I'll try to keep jotting them all down in one form. So I have them all available for the live show. I'll have clips. I'll talk. It'll be fun, and again, hey, who knows? Maybe nobody calls, nobody writes. I don't care. There's going to be a live show next Friday, celebrating 100 episodes, and I've had a lot of great support and supporters for what I do. And just remember, I've always said, as much support as I've been given, this is not come get some, the original come get some. I always said, it's not my show, it's our show. And even more so on the Scientology side, this show is for survivors, and this is for exposing the abuses. And that's what it's meant to be. So thank you again for coming this week and listening. Until next week, until Thursday, stay connected. And that about sums it up.
You have been listening to Come Get Some Extra on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, YouTube, and many other streaming services where available. As always, stay connected. And that about sums it up.